friends, welcome or welcome back to the Marketing Nomad YouTube channel. Today I have a tarot deck review video. We have the Stained Glass Tarot by James Edward. Now this deck was very kindly gifted to me by Inner Traditions, Bear and Company Publishers, and I just wanted to say a very big thank you to them for sending this deck over for me to review. All right, now what you can expect in today's tarot deck review, I am going to be diving deep into what this deck is about, some of the things that really stood out to me about this particular tarot deck, my thoughts, my observations as I started to connect with this particular tarot deck, and some of the tips that have helped for me in order to connect better with the energy of this particular deck. All right, so before we get into the other angle of this video where I kind of give you a closer look at the deck, the cards, I just want to take some time to read what's on the front and the back of this box. All right, so we have the Stained Glass Tarot by James Edward, an illuminated journey through the cards, and this is a 78 card deck and book. Okay, now I'm going to read the back of the box. All right, inspired by the intricate symbols and colors of the stained glass windows of cathedrals and other sacred places, the 78 card tarot set draws the reader into a meditative state as they contemplate the mystical symbolism and stunning artwork of the cards. The accompanying guidebook provides thorough meanings for each card of both major and minor arcana, their upright and reversed appearances, as well as evocative verses that invite the reader to explore each card's esoteric symbolism. For the 22 major arcana, the author explains how each card fits into the progressive soul's journey from the Fool to the World. For the minor arcana, he explains the significance of each of the suits, their key attributes and influences. He describes a number of ways to interpret each card and how to decide which interpretation to favor. He also includes a variety of card spreads and offers a glimpse into tarot history, its connections to astrology, numerology, alchemy, and the Western esoteric tradition, teachings of Carl Jung. This illuminating tarot set provides not only a highly detailed manual, but also mesmerizing images that draw the eye, calm and focus the mind for an authentic divinatory experience. James Edward has been active in witchcraft and the occult for more than 20 years. Wow. A scientist by training, he is an animist as well as a spiritual ecologist. He lives in southeastern Texas. Destiny Books, Rochester, Vermont. Cover illustrations, James Edward. Cover design, Aaron Davis. Alrighty, I can't wait to dive deeper into the review of this book because I am in absolute awe of the illustration as well as the contents of the guidebook. It is just extremely comprehensive and extremely detailed. Now, if you're a beginner looking to get into tarot, I would highly recommend this particular deck, and in particular I would recommend the guidebook as well. There is a lot of information in the guidebook for mid to advanced readers, and we'll talk about it a little bit more as I get into the review part of this video. But I just wanted to say right off the bat, if you're a beginner and you're looking for a tarot deck that follows very closely to the RWS symbolism and the meanings of the cards, then this would be a great deck review to kind of look into to see if it aligns with your energy, if this is a card deck that you would connect with. All right, and of course there are a lot of details for mid to advanced readers as well in this particular guidebook, and I'll dive a little bit more detailed thoughts into that in just a little bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the camera angle and we are going to get into my thoughts and the review of the Stained Glass Tarot deck. Give me a few seconds. Alrighty, so this is what the box looks like. And that was the back that I just read from. This is a magnetic open and shut box. So the moment you open the magnetic cover, you see the guidebook right over there. let's talk a little bit about the guidebook, because I think that James Edward has done a fantastic job on the guidebook as well. So the first part of it is, he talks about why he chose stained glass. He talks a little bit about the structure of tarot, how to use it, and he also talks about questions that are usually asked with tarot. So if you are a beginner and you probably are learning about tarot at this point, I would highly recommend this particular deck, just because the guidebook by itself is so detailed, and it gives you such a brilliant starting point if you are a beginner. This book also has tarot spreads and readings that you can kind of use for yourself. Of course, we do also have the mention of the Celtic cross spread in this. One thing that I in particular enjoyed about this book was this section about tarot history and symbolism. It talks about how tarot is related to astrology, is also connected to numerology, alchemy, and also with the Swiss psychologist and founder of analytical psychology, Carl Jung. So when you start looking at the major arcanas in this particular guidebook, it is so detailed, all right? It is so detailed. First off, for every single card, there is a poem that James Edward has written, and it is very moving, I would say, very emotional. And by just reading the poem, there's a lot of insights that just evoke within you. So that was something different that I have not experienced before with tarot decks, the poem that goes along with it. So that was very nice experience for me. Not just that, with every single card, more details definitely in the major arcanas compared to the minor arcanas, but details all the same. With the major arcanas, you have the upright, the reverse, you have the astrological association. You also have more obscure meanings of it, just in case you want to dive a little bit deeper. If you are like a mid to advanced reader, I would highly recommend getting this deck as well. Like, for example, there is a connection to nature, shadow self, communication and language, and then, what does it mean, so on and so forth. Deeper meanings to the card. And there is also the Jungian interpretation, how it relates to love and relationships, health and well-being, money and career, spirituality and spiritual development, seeking clarity, and then its answer, that particular card's answer, the ancestral influence, and the unknown and hidden influences. So a lot of different layers, so many different layers that you can tap into, and I, for one, have enjoyed reading it. I haven't completely finished reading this book, though, as a heads up. I am taking my time and enjoying every single bit of information. And I find myself going back to the poems in the past that I've read and then coming back to it, gaining new understandings with each and every line of it. And the major arcanas have a lot of deep meaning. And the minor arcanas, they do have the poem, but they also have keywords coming through with it. So I, for one, I'm definitely not done with this book. Even if I finish reading the entire book, I'm definitely going to come back to it, just because there is just so much of meaning that keeps coming out to me, that keeps jumping at me as many times as I find myself reading it. So if you are a beginner, I would highly recommend getting this deck. And of course, we're going to get into the illustration part of the deck, but just as a good starting point, if you're looking for a tarot deck that's of course not the RWS, but something very closely similar with the same meanings or similar meanings, I would recommend getting this deck. All right. So right off the bat, as you are looking at the cards over here, very high quality, thick as well. All right. And it is bigger than your standard tarot size. So with respect to shuffling, yes, if you have smaller hands, I would say that it might be a little bit of a challenge. My hands do run on the slightly smaller side, so I definitely do struggle a bit with respect to the shuffling, but that is to be expected. I would say that because it is of a slightly thicker cardstock, it will hold good for a longer period of time. This, as you can see, very smooth matte finish over here, reduces the glare, and there are no fingerprints as you hold it. So for me, that was also something that I really liked. I wouldn't say difficult shuffling, but I would say comfortable shuffling. It did take me 1 or 2 tries to get used to the shuffling of this deck. I think that my hands were just not used to the size as well. So that's one thing that stood out to me about this, but I like that it is bigger because there's just so much of intricacy in the artwork that shines because of the size of the deck. So that is something that I really liked, and I think that's probably the reason why the decks run a little bit larger. It's so that the artwork, you can actually kind of see the little bit of details coming through in the artwork. Now, James Edward, by the way, oh my gosh, what a star. Each card, it represents or resembles a vibrant stained glass window, and there are these bold color blocks and very, very strong leaded outlines to them. It's pretty much a glass window, and I in particular, I found it very, very captivating. I think that there's a very glowing feel to the entire deck. And because it is glass, I don't know if it's me or if it was how it was meant to be, but because it's glass, I find it to be a reflection of me, of what is going on in my inner world. And that was something that was like a whoa experience for me when I started tapping into this deck, because right off the bat, I didn't think of it that way, I think it might have been a very unconscious thought process that just rolled out over time for me, because the first time I read with this deck, it was just pretty normal experience, and I was wondering, okay, well, how am I going to tap deeper into this energy? And I just left it at that. And it was not until the 3rd or the 4th reading that it actually hit me that, hey, this is actually my inner world that's actually being shown in the reading over here. And that's when it hit me. Maybe this is a reflection of what's going on in the inner world. And that's how I ended up tying the the energy of this deck to me. And of course, I understand that it is deeply personal, but this is just my experience with it. For me, I think that this deck mirrors a lot about what's going on inside me. Maybe it's because of the black that surrounds each of the cards. I feel like it is me looking inwards. That has been my experience with this. So for me, all right, this deck has been a good conduit to my inner voice or even my higher self as well. Whichever one I feel like connecting in that point in time, this has been a good one. And for me, the relationship with this deck, it just deepened over time. Like I told you, the first time I read it, it was just a normal reading. I was kind of enjoying the colors, the meanings, the energy that was coming out. But it wasn't until the 2nd or the 3rd reading that I started to feel so deeply connected, because it felt like me coming through, and more importantly, my higher self coming through, and sometimes even my inner voice. So for me, I think I would call it a quiet connection that kind of snuck up on me over time. And I think you can hear me smiling as I talk about this deck as well. It was very, very beautiful for me to experience that. I would say that this deck definitely shines on shadow aspects. It does. It brings it all to light, but there is a very gentle layer to it, a very compassionate layer to the meanings and the energy of this deck that comes out, because there are difficult truths that I have tapped with this particular deck, but I think that it came out in a way that made me feel comfortable to understand it better, if that makes sense. All right. So like I said, I think that this particular deck, the relationship with it deepened over time. It wasn't just right off the bat. It took about 2 or 3 readings for me to say, hey, I'm actually connecting with this deck. I'm actually connecting with the energy. And more importantly, it feels like me. It feels like me. And I think that's why I found it to be very sacred, like the relationship that I have with this particular deck. Also, I think it also could be the poems, the poems that you read as you are going through this particular deck. They're very they're very deep in their meaning, very, very insightful. And each time you read the sentence, okay, is a different interpretation, or something else just kind of jumps out at you. So it could be the same poem, it could be the same number of lines, but each time you read it, there's a different interpretation, there's a different meaning that comes out. And that was also something that I absolutely enjoyed. It might not, the way that I feel is maybe it was meant to be one way, but maybe I'm interpreting it into different layers and more deeper. But I think that's where the fun is, right? I think that's where the fun is. So for me in particular, that was something that I enjoyed with this deck, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to continue enjoying with this deck. Like I said, I think that this is a guidebook that I will keep coming back to, because I read some of the poems I really liked, and I just, even when I'm feeling low about myself, or I just want a little bit of upliftment, a little bit of that creative energy surge, yeah, I would definitely be reaching out to this guidebook for that as well. Now, overall, I think that this guidebook and the deck by itself, very, very approachable to beginners, all right? Because it's very closely related to the traditional RWS symbolism, right? So you're not going to be uncomfortable reading it, even if you are just a beginner. And the guidebook, very clear, very supportive. There's very, very straightforward interpretations. If you love poems, this book, this guidebook will definitely help you remember the RWS symbolism and the meanings in a much more interpretative way, I guess I would say, and a much more creative way. Yes, that's also another word that I would give in. And if you are an experienced reader, you will enjoy the guidebook, because there are so many different layers. Like, how can you interpret this card in different aspects of your life, or in different hidden layers that come through with this particular deck? And if you are a psychology nut, which I am, I've done a couple of psychology courses. I feel like all my life I've always been kind of intuitively led to psychology. So if you feel that about yourself as well, I would highly recommend getting this guidebook. I mean, tarot to me is a form of psychotherapy. I have always believed that. And I think that this deck in particular reinforces that understanding for me as well. All right. So overall, I think that the images by itself, the artwork is so radiant, so beautiful, and it just glows. I don't know how the artist James Edward did it, but it glows. And that by itself, I think that's where the soothing energy comes from, the gentle, the compassionate energy comes from. And it's very, very easy to connect with this deck. Like I told you, my relationship with this deck deepened over time, but right off the bat, it was just very easy for me. I could just read it. It was very simple, very easy. I think it might have been the ease that caught me off guard, I thought it was going to be difficult. I thought, I would have to, kind of see different ways of the stained glass, but no, nothing of that sort. It was very easy, very intuitive, just led me on a journey of its own, and I just flowed along with it. But my relationship with it, connecting with the energy of the deck, yes, that deepened over time, and that I enjoyed. I absolutely enjoyed. So if you are looking for a deck that is positive, that is uplifting, that's transformative, I would say even shadow work for this particular deck, yes, I would highly recommend this particular deck. For me, I think that there's a lot of clarity that is offered with respect to this deck. And if you're looking for creative inspiration, as I mentioned before, the poems help you out with it. But the energy of the deck also is such, just because it is just so artistically vibrant as well. And if you're looking for a way to connect with maybe your inner voice or even your higher self, I would highly, highly recommend this deck, because it shines through your higher self. I really think that this is just such a beautiful conduit to your higher self or even your inner voice, whichever you feel like tapping into at that point in time. All right. I really think that the artwork, just the energy of this particular deck, it just calls it out. It just comes forward, So I can't really explain it in a better way. I think that you have to experience it with this deck. But for me, that was a very, very, very eye-opening experience, and it was also more to do with empowering myself, because here was a way for my higher self to reach out to me, to show me some difficult truths, but also be just, very kind, gentle, compassionate towards me, and just kind of hold me as I move through understanding these deeper truths so that I can ascend, so that I can evolve as a person. So I would say, yes, personal empowerment, personal transformation, this deck would be helpful for that as well. In particular, I would say guided journaling is amazing for this particular deck because, first off, the poem. I know I keep coming back to it, but I'm just so floored by it. The poem. And also, specifically for the major arcanas, how it is segregated into different meanings that you can pull out of it. Yeah, great for guided journaling. If there's a particular aspect of your life that you want to dig deeper into, I would highly recommend getting this deck for that as well. And because of the artwork, I would also say visualization is a good way to use this deck. For example, you have some meditative work, some visualization. I would say, yes, this deck is a good one for that as well. All right. So these are a few ways that I've used this particular deck. It's been about 6 weeks now. Used it in about 10 readings, whether it is for myself, my clients, or even collective readings. Yes, this deck has been very, very helpful, very, very insightful. And more importantly, I think that it has been a way for me to tackle difficult parts of my journey, my soul's journey, in a way that is kind, compassionate, and understanding that this is part of the process. This is soul evolution, all right? So this is where I will leave you for today with respect to this review. I really hope that it gave you a good starting point to understand if this is a deck that aligns with your needs. And thank you so much for listening all the way up until here, for watching all the way up until here, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye-bye.